The Detroit Lions are starting OTAs. And when OTAs come around, it's always exciting because when offseason workouts begin, storylines begin because we're inching closer to training camp and inching closer to the regular season. Well, the preseason, then the regular season. But today we're going to go through Tim Twentyman's really the top things, or 5 things to watch for OTAs, what he is expecting to see. I'm going to review them, give my thoughts on what he wrote about, and kind of play off of that, even at some things that I'm looking for. So we'll start, and Booner put this out, so big shout out to Booner, but he writes here in this tweet, Detroit Lions news, today is the first day of the Detroit Lions OTA offseason workouts. Here is the full schedule. OTA workouts, it's May 21st to the 23rd, May 29th to the 31st, and then June 10th to the 12th. And then you have mandatory minicamp June 4th to the 6th. Now, OTA workouts, it's not mandatory, but there will be rookies, there will be players. I think a lot of Lions are going to be there. And he writes also in this tweet, what storylines will you be looking for out of OTA workouts this week? And like I said before, I'm going to go through some things that I'm looking for. We're going to react to what Tim Twentyman said. So let's go ahead and I'll put on the screen some of the things that Tim Twentyman is looking for. And if you guys don't know who Tim is, I'd be very shocked. He is the head writer for DetroitLions.com. And he pretty much gets, I think, every first question at every press conference. So you should know who Tim Twentyman is. But let's react to what he said, what he's looking for this year's OTA. So the first thing he writes here, again, this is on DetroitLions.com, is the revamped cornerback room. And he begins to talk about what happened last year, the secondary, how bad it was, and what they did this offseason to improve that secondary by trading for Carlton Davis III, signing Amik Robertson, re-signing Emmanuel Mosley, and then bringing back Kindle Vildor, obviously in a different role, but then drafting Terrion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw. So he begins to kind of talk about the competition there at cornerback and how it's going to be very, very competitive. And I couldn't agree anymore. For me, if we're talking about the cornerback room, yeah, I'm excited for Terrion Arnold. I'm excited to see what he looks like as the season inches closer because he just continues to impress. Ennis Rakestraw, does he play in the slot? How does Aaron Glenn and Dan Campbell find a way to get him on the field? That's probably one of my questions heading into just offseason in general. Where does Ennis Rakestraw lie? Is he a type of player where Aaron Glenn sits there and goes, I got to find a way to get this guy in the field? But if I'm being honest with you guys, the biggest thing I'm looking for, or a big question I want answers to, is where does Amik Robertson align with all this? Because if you go back and watch Amik Robertson last year, he was one of the best secondary players for the Las Vegas Raiders. And the Lions signed him. He's not a well-known name, but he fits what Detroit wants, especially at corner. But I think his versatility is kind of underrated as well. You know, Amik Robertson could be someone who could play on the outside. I think he has the tools to play in the slot. He plays well against the run. He even has some blitzing upside to him. He's just an absolute dog. And I know that term gets thrown around a lot, but I think it's true with Amik Robertson. So for me, if we're talking about the cornerback room in the competition, yeah, Terrion Arnold, right? Carlton Davis, I think his spot, he still has to earn it, but we understand he's probably going to be CB1. Ennis Rakestraw, how does he work into this room? Does he impress the coaches to the point where he's on the field immediately? But for me, it's Amik Robertson. Where does he align with all this? Because now that you drafted back-to-back corners, I can't help but think, man, they signed Amik Robertson. He had big expectations kind of going into the season as to be like a legitimate CB2 before they drafted Terrion Arnold. But now we would assume Terrion's going to win that spot. But where does Amik Robertson, where does he fit into all this? Is he one of those players where you're like, hey, this guy's got to get on the field. We got to find a way to get him on the field. Maybe he plays in the slot and it's Rakestraw, takes some time to get acclimated and eventually earns that spot if there's an injury or where he just outplays one of the players already there. But I think Amik Robertson is very underrated. And I think he has the talent to go out there and make an impact this year. Like, I don't think he's a guy you're signing for depth. I think you're signing him to be a starter. And I'm curious for not only OTAs, but really for the rest of the offseason and even training camp, what kind of player he is. And I'm curious where you guys are at with Amik Robertson, because I know we don't talk about him a lot because they drafted 2 corners that are pretty good and going to be pretty good. But I think Amik Robertson his position is, to me, the most interesting to see. Listen, what does this guy rise to? And hell, maybe he's starting on at outside corner. Who knows? But again, that's where I would go with the cornerback room for me. Is where does Amik Robertson fit into it, and how much can he impress the coaches this offseason to work his way to being on the field? The next thing he talks about is some of the second year players to watch, which I actually like, and I agree with this. And he writes, Detroit got massive contributions from first-year players like running back Jahmyr Gibbs, linebacker Jack Campbell, cornerback Bryant Branch, and tight end Sam Laporta. And just basically asking the question, what kind of jump can these players take in year two? He even mentions Hendon Hooker, Broderick Martin, Colby Sorsdahl, Antoine Green, and how Hendon Hooker will be in the mix for the backup quarterback job. And he begins to also say, I wouldn't be surprised if there are some packages developed for him in the offense should he win the role. So for me, I think there's a couple players to talk about here. Specifically, one of those players, I would go immediately Jack Campbell, because I think Jack is somebody that I think should be he's going to be a better player than Anzalone long term. But I think year two, Jack Campbell could challenge Anzalone. That's how high I am on Jack Campbell. I mean, this is someone who won the Buckus Award. He was one of the best linebackers, if not the best linebacker the year he came out. Very athletic. Very, very good in coverage. At least that's what we saw at the collegiate level. And he even showed last year he's got some pass rush upside. And he's an absolute tackling machine. And he's humongous. He's like 6'5", by the way. So I think Jack Campbell is a player for me to watch. Now, I'm curious again, because last year he kind of worked his way, played a little bit of Sam linebacker with James Houston being out. But he is a true middle linebacker. He is the future captain of this defense. And I think a year one to year two jump for Jack Campbell is something that I would watch out for. I think he's easily the most likely to break out. If we're talking about first year to second year, to me, it's Jack Campbell. The other storyline with this is Antoine Green. They didn't address wide receiver. I'm curious how much better Antoine Green has gotten. I know we have John Macroon on a lot, and I love John. And one thing he always brings up with bringing in outside wide receivers from the outside, meaning free agency, is really this playbook and how complex this offense is. Well, Antoine Green has already been in this offense for a year. What kind of jump does he take? Now you have DPJ, which I'm very high on. You guys know that. That's why I wasn't I wasn't pushing for them to sign a wide receiver. I think they have enough. Yeah, if they drafted one, I was all on board, but they didn't. I think they have enough in-house, and DPJ will take a significant jump in terms of a role. But where does Antoine Green stand in all this? What kind of player can he be? He's somebody that is kind of a true X. He's an outside wide receiver, but someone that I think can stretch the field a little bit. And I think even though he's a 7th-round pick, I think there is upside to Antoine Green. So he's another player I'm going to watch out for, especially in terms of year one to year two. Now, another player would be Broderick Martin. Have you guys seen the photos of Broderick Martin? He looks great. And I mentioned this on the show yesterday. The Detroit Lions training staff does not get enough credit. I mean, these players, Lee McNeil, yes, you will credit the players for getting into shape, but man, the training regimen and the program that this training staff has the players on for not only staying healthy, but losing weight, staying in shape, because that's one of Dan Campbell's biggest rules, right? Stay in shape. And these guys are doing that. And Broderick Martin seems to have lost a lot of weight. So in terms of his development, I am curious, especially if DJ Reader is not ready for the season. Where does he stand in all this? Because I think Levi Onwuzurike's time in Detroit is almost out. So Broderick Martin, could he play some nose tackle for you this year? How much does he see the field? Not only this year, but really the remaining years on his rookie contract. And I am excited about Broderick Martin. I think there is something there. You can't write him off yet because we haven't really gotten to see him. Colby Sorsdahl you can mention as well, but Colby, I think there's going to be a little more time. Broderick, I think he's physically just so gifted. And if he loses weight like he has been and not just gets into shape, but gets into incredible shape for his size, man, throw some agility on that man. I think he's an interesting player to look out for. Now, for Hendon Hooker, I think he's going to win the backup role. I think he's better than Nate Sudfeld. But going out and competing for it, I am excited. I am, because Hendon last year was just kind of on the sideline. I mean, I went to training camp. He was out there throwing, but he wasn't really doing much. But not only this offseason, but really the whole year, I am curious about the Hendon Hooker storylines, because Not that he's going to replace Goff. I'm not saying that. But in terms of securing that backup quarterback job, and even what Tim said, about the working some packages in, which I don't know if they would do that, because why would you want to put your backup quarterback? Maybe in some situations, but I don't know if that maybe they do. I'm not going to really comment on that. But to earn that backup quarterback job and to see his development, hey, I'm interested. I am. And I'm a big Hendon Hooker guy. And again, I'm not saying he's going to replace him this year, Jared Goff. I'm not saying that. I don't want to have that conversation. I know when we bring up Hendon Hooker, everyone's like, stop it. He's not replacing Goff. No, but he's a hell of a backup. I'll tell you that. And Lions fans should be very glad to have him as a backup. So I think Hendon Hooker, in terms of last year to this year, I know he's been working hard this offseason, but where does he lie in all this, and how much does he show out? Because I think he's a really, really good player. So that's a player I'm definitely going to be keying in on for this, for not only OTAs, but really for the future of the offseason and for really training camp in general. So people can actually go out there and see Hendon Hooker. Another, and he already mentioned Tim Twentyman right here writes the backup quarterback job, which I already kind of went into. I think it's Hendon Hooker's job to lose. Like, let's be real. Nate Sudfeld, I think, brings value as kind of another quarterback coach, but there is no way if Nate Sudfeld wins the backup job, then everyone should be out on Hendon. There's no way. I'm sorry. And that's not a shade to Nate Sudfeld, but I'm just keeping it real with you. But we'll keep it moving. He also writes Jameson Williams, and why it could potentially be a breakout year, and why everyone should be paying attention to JMO this offseason, which I couldn't agree any more with. I think JMO this year, everyone's expecting a big year and expecting him to take a step forward. And this offseason is the time to do that, the time to prove to everybody why you were drafted in the first round. Like Amon-Ra's over here getting all pros, but he was drafted in the fourth round. And JMO, who was one of the most electric players in college the year he came out, is sitting there going, wow, I'm looked at as kind of a wide receiver 2. And last year, really wide receiver 3. But I know I'm more talented than that. Then he has time to go prove it. Go out there, make plays. They're going to trust him now. He coming off the game he had in the NFC title game. I mean, yeah, in the rushing TD he scored. There's a lot of ways you can use him. And if I'm JMO, I'm excited to prove to everybody I'm that guy. And he's had time to work with Jared Goff, which I know they've been working this offseason. So for JMO, I think that's one of the bigger storylines, because depending on how high you are on JMO, you already have Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown, 2 big-time players in the passing game, 2 all-pros. Where does JMO lie in all this? And I think that's a big storyline, absolutely, this offseason. And I think he will win that number 2 role. And I think he will be productive. I think he doubles his production. I don't know if he's a 1,000-yard receiver this year, given the talent they have. There's only one football, and I think Laporta can easily get 1,000, and Amon-Ra is going to get 1,500. Someone's going to have to take a back seat, and maybe JMO is the guy that goes, no, I'm the number 2 option in the passing game. Laporta, you can have your 800 yards, but I'm going to get 1,000. But we shall see. I don't think there'll be 3 1,000-yard receivers, but I think there'll be 2. So if it's Laporta or JMO, we shall see. Now, when you get to the next thing that Tim Twentyman talks about here, he mentions rookies fitting in and how really the rookies get into this training camp or this OTAs, the OTAs and training camp, rookie mini camp, like they already had 2 weeks ago, a couple weeks ago. And one player he does talk about is Gio Manu and Sione Vake and Mekhi Wingo, Christian Mahogany, and there are a lot of storylines. Like, I think for me, in terms of, we'll just break them down one by one. If you want to start with Gio, Gio's an interesting player because he's going to have a lot of time to work. I'm not as pressured to see results or see the upside yet. We all understand he's a project and they see him as a future tackle. Maybe he plays a little bit of guard. So Hank Fraley's going to work with him. So I'm not as, I need results from Gio Manu, but I am excited for him, guys. I mean, you look at it, I say it all the time, 6'8", 350, no gut. I don't understand it, but I am excited for him. So yeah, I'm going to be paying attention to Gio Manu, but a player that I will be paying the most attention to, if I'm being honest with you guys, 2 players. One, Sione Vake, because I've mentioned it before. I don't know the plan they have for him. I mean, I do. Yes, he's their 3rd running back. He's going to be one of their best special teamers, but I just want to see it come to fruition. Like, that's where I'm at with it. I want to see really the results there. Like, okay, how do you work him in offensively? Is he playing? Okay, he's playing special teams, but does he play a little bit of safety? What do you have him at? And that's one player that I am so excited to see be developed. So for me, Sione Vaki is up there. Mekhi Wingo is also up there because I think he could challenge some guys' spots on that defensive line, not only this year, but really the next year or two. I think he's that good of a player. So he's going to be great competition in that defensive line room. So he's definitely up there. Christian Mahogany, to me, maybe he comes in. I think he's just going to be the backup guard. So him and Colby Sorsdahl will be kind of handling that. So it's not that I'm keyed in on to see Christian. I think he's going to be a fine player. But if there is an injury to, let's say, Graham Glasgow, I am curious. Is it Christian Mahogany or is it Colby Sorsdahl? Because I think Christian is that good to where he could immediately be better than Colby Sorsdahl. Because Colby is a little more of a project. I think Christian is kind of ready, with all due respect to Colby. So, yeah, I am curious to see the competition. But for me, the biggest, players to watch are Sione Vaki and Mekhi Wingo, to me personally. And and those are really all the things that Tim talked about. It was really, the cornerback room, which we all agree, competition. Number 2 would be second-year players to watch, which I went through and named some of the guys that I'm excited for. 3 was backup quarterback, which we agree. At least I said, and I would hope you agree, Hendon Hooker should win that job. There really shouldn't be any question marks about it. 4 was a breakout year for Jameson Williams, which I do believe he will double his production and be a big threat in the passing game, as he should. You drafted him in the first round. And then 5 would be how the rookies fit in which I went through some of the rookies I'm most excited for. But the question I have is, who do you guys have? Who are some players you're excited to see in OTAs and just moving forward this offseason? Some storylines that will be written about each of these players. There are a couple that I'm excited for. I've already named them, but I'll ask you guys. Comment down below, share your thoughts. We are live weekdays, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. on our channel. And you can follow us on all social media platforms at Official CT Pod and at Official CT Sports on Instagram and Official Crunch Time on TikTok. Until next time, I'll catch you guys.